Let's go to Frenchie in Fremont.
Frenchie Fuqua?
Hi, Frenchie. What are you doing?
I'm sitting here in traffic. I appreciate you guys taking my call.
Thank you for making it.
You know, this kind of narrative that's arising now about they want to sit Purdy because they're not pleased with him in the last 2 games, and so they're bringing out Sam Darnold. I just can't buy into that because technically the first game, although he didn't play well, in the end of the Browns game, he did bring them back down the field. I think that loss was more on Moody more so than on Purdy. So I just don't think that Kyle would want to risk, like you said, something that dangerous when they're pretty pleased with the way Brock's been going so far and stuff. And they wouldn't want to risk that type of locker room behavior and stuff when he's actually doing good.
Frenchie, I agree with you. I don't think we've got a conspiracy here. Frenchie, thanks. Like you just said it a few minutes ago, that Kyle Shanahan is a self-admitted terrible liar. Well, if he's a terrible liar...
That was Kruger, yeah.
Was it Larry?
Yeah.
Once again, me with my listening. Anyway,
right.
I knew it came up in the conversation.
It came up.
But if Kyle is a terrible liar, then... boy, he's really pulling a fast one on us with this idea that he actually likes Brock Purdy. I mean, we have a little adversity, and now we're believing that Kyle wants to wiggle his way out of the Brock Purdy experience after 8 days of a little adversity and a 5-2 record and the second-rated QB in the league. Listen, I have a hard time wrapping my head around that's going on here.
Yeah, and a guy who just got extended, Kyle Shanahan, a guy who is firmly entrenched in an organization, is going to go to these lengths to take his quarterback out in advance of a bye week. If you really want to take Brock Purdy out, you do it during the bye week, and then you let Sam Darnold start coming out of the bye, and you give him that extra half a week or that extra week to go in there and get ramped up if you want to take a guy out. And Brock Purdy's now lost 2 straight games, the only 2 games he's ever lost. And I think you can rightly look at these games and say he didn't really lose the games himself.
Sure.
And Frenchie with a good call. If Jake Moody makes that kick, and if the defense isn't necessarily as porous as they were against Minnesota, Brock Purdy probably wins both those games.
Yeah, I'm with Larry, what he said also with regard to the first 3 quarters of Purdy. This has not been talked about enough, and I know it. Winning time, that takes over everything.
Yeah.
And you got to be good at winning time, or else no one's going to care about what else you do. But for the first 3 quarters of that football game, I thought Brock Purdy was the best 49er on the field.
He was great.
I thought he was the best 49er on the field. And then the fourth quarter happened. And I'm not going to blame it on the concussion, but it is interesting that we've now tracked that down, that the concussion, if it does happen on that 3rd and 1 quarterback sneak, yeah, it was his next throw that got intercepted. So do with that what you will.
Yeah.
888-957-9570. How about Bernie in the city? Hey, Bernie, you're on with Willard and Dibs. What's up?
How you doing, guys? I'm a convert. I used to listen to KMBR, but you guys are great. Fantastic. And
you've done a good thing, Bernie.
I think they just think you guys have more substance. There's too much small talk over there at KMBR. But anyway, I just want to say I think Brock Purdy is overrated. I think he's a good quarterback. And I don't think they should bench him yet, but I'm really concerned about his durability. He's getting concussions already. And once you get a concussion, you're more likely to get another one. And, and I'm also concerned with the fact that he hasn't been able to show that he could come back late in the game during crunch time and win the game. He doesn't have Joe Montana qualities yet.
Oh, well,
And,
I'm glad.
I don't know if he has to be coached up or what.
Well, Bernie, he doesn't have Joe Montana qualities. He's got to coach him up, so he's got Joe Montana qualities.
Yeah.
That's asking quite a bit. I don't know why the name Montana for me can only come up when you talk about the way he looks and the way he moves, not about his success rate, who he's going to be, the resume, any of that stuff. I'm glad you used the word "yet" when you said that he doesn't have that thing at the end of a game. when you say Brock Purdy's overrated, I guess my first question is, well, how do you rate him? How are people rating him? I still hear opinions all over the board. So he can only be overrated if everybody's like, yeah, this is the 6th best quarterback in the league. And maybe you're like, no, he's not. But, maybe you think I overrate him. That's fine. You can think that. But I still hear plenty of people who have doubts and questions, and maybe that's fair this early in his career. But to me, we're feeling a lot of it right now. That's what I see. I see a lot of people who have decided that when he was 13-0, they had no choice but to start complimenting him. And now after 2 losses and a concussion, your real feelings are coming out, which is that you never bought into it in the first place.
Then how can he be overrated? I think
exactly.
I don't know. The whole idea of overrated means somebody is either drafted really high and there's a lot of hype and a lot of, expectation around that player, and then that player doesn't do well. Well, Brock Purdy is actually the opposite of it. He was the last player taken in a draft. He was QB3 until the 2 guys in front of him got hurt. He didn't beat out Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, ever. He got the job because they were hurt. And then when he got the job, he did really, really well.
Yeah, you could argue he beat out Trey Lance this year.
But the reason why he beat out Trey Lance was because he got the job last year due to injury.
Sure.
And then he played great. And so he actually never beat him out this year because he wasn't in competition with him. So I don't know how you go from that point where you're almost undrafted, you're QB3, you do great. He came into this year and the expectations were, well, his shoulder, his elbow, he may not be even healthy. And boy, if he is, he's got a great coach and a lot of talent around him. And boy, that system sure is great. So I don't know how you can look at him and say that he is overrated because he's never been rated as a top 5 QB in football or even a top 10 QB in football.
Well, and those things don't exist anyway. That's just everybody's faux kind of rankings. You can be anywhere from Steven Ruiz to where Troy Aikman apparently is. I have no idea.
And I saw the latest Ruiz, by the way.
Oh, boy. What is he, 48th?
No, he actually moved up.
Oh, God.
He moved up a spot.
See, he's just trying to. I'm telling you, Brock Purdy's good for business. He's good for business.
Brock Purdy, 2 of 6 with 2 interceptions and 1 spiking of the football after the concussion.
Yeah.
He threw a pick. He threw 2 great passes that moved the chains. He spiked it to stop it, and then he threw another pick.
Yeah. No, I don't know what he's quote unquote rated. I know that he has still played less than 1 season of football. I know that his stats and his win-loss record are unbelievable. The rest of it is still a growing story. Did you hear Aikman say that Purdy told him, he's still regaining strength in the arm?
Wow.
Which is interesting, right? I didn't think it was a thing anymore. When you come back and start practicing right away at the beginning of August, you would have thought that on October, checks notes, 25th, that, that would have been a thing of the past. He's like, no, still building strength. This player is still a young player getting better. It's one of the reasons I am so high on him to be able to do this so early.
So high.
How about Brian in San Jose? Hey, Brian, what are you doing?
Hey, guys. I appreciate you taking my call. I think Shanahan is a genius, and most fans would agree with me. And since we have the bye coming up after Cincinnati, wouldn't it be kind of Shanahan-like to try out Sam Darnold to see what he's really got just in case, something freaky might happen to Brock, just like what happened to Garoppolo last year?
Brian, when you say, wouldn't it be Shanahan-like, what do you mean? Because what you said next to me sounds like, coaches just throw away NFL games on a weekend to check and see certain stuff, which I don't know, man. I just don't think people do that in the NFL.
Well, you got to find out how Sam Darnold's going to stack up if something did knock on wood, something happens to Brock, right? You got to find out how Sam Darnold's going to carry the team, and I think it's a good test, to play against Cincinnati, who was in the Super Bowl last year. So let's see what Sam's got.
Well, it was 2 years ago, Brian, that Cincinnati was in the Super Bowl, number one. And number two, with all due respect, I would answer your question when you say you got to see what Sam's got, right? No, you don't. You don't ever need to see what your backup quarterback can do.
And they already feel like they know what Sam's got, which is why they went out and gave him $3 million to come in. Shanahan thinks that he knows more than we do about what Sam's got.
Well, and he does, but he also doesn't know what he would do in a real game as a 49er. And no, you're not activated to find that out unless in emergency you break glass, which is what they're going to have to do because they've got an emergency.
Or if you're in a spot where you can kick off a game because you're already clinching a division and you're clinching a 1 seed, that sort of scenario, but that's not until December or January.
For me, this goes back to a piece of the conversation we were having on Monday about Christian McCaffrey. I'm always fascinated, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm fascinated by how many people think that coaches mess around with the lineup in NFL games because they can sort of assume that, we'll beat that team anyway without this player, or, hey, even if we lose, we're gonna win the next 3 because, Arizona, am I right? My perception that no NFL coach ever has had that thought even once. The idea of we don't need this one. And we're going to beat that team 3 weeks from now. We got that one in the books. And so, let's check and see what the backup looks like. They're maniacal. They are focused. They have respect for the fact that the opponent has really good players and coaches too, even if they're in a down way. The way coaches talk in press conferences, this is the same thing they do in the locker room, where they're like, okay, we're 14-point favorites, but guys, here's all the ways where this could go wrong. They're driven by fear, not this overconfidence of I know we're going to win all the games in the second half. Yeah. So let's mess around with this one and check out the backup. I don't understand that at all.
Well, that's not a mentality that they have. It's a mentality that fans have because we look at records and we look at scenarios and we think, you're going to win that game. But you were 10-point favorites over Cleveland and you lost. You were 7-point favorites over Minnesota and you lost. And those were road games, and I know they're tougher, but the very fact is the odds makers and the expectation and fans all thought those games would be wins, and you lost them both, and now you're 5-2. And the other piece of it, Mark, is something that you've talked about in terms of the locker room. So you've got these guys, Banks and Brendel and Williams and all the guys who are in the trenches, and you go in there and you tell them, you know what? We're going to go with Sam Darnold this week, and we're going to play Ty Davis-Price as the running back, even though we all know that he's our 4th-stringer. I want to see what he's got.
Let's make sure he's ready.
Yeah, guys, we're going to need you to go out there and play as hard as you can and risk literally your lives, and, because anything can happen.
Sure.
Damar Hamlin taught us that last year in Buffalo. This game is very serious, and it's more than just grown men, tangling at the line of scrimmage. It literally is life and limb, but go ahead and risk life and limb, and I'm just going to maybe trick this one off because I want to see what we have in our backup QB.
Talk to the families of coaches who, during the season, are like, we never even see him.
Yeah.
He doesn't come home. The practice ends. You think Kyle went home after he talked today?
Oh, he punches out.
Is that what you all think?
He works an 8-hour day, Mark.
You think they've got a 6:15 reservation at the Cheesecake Factory tonight? Kyle is 10 times more likely to be on a cot in 7 hours in his office because he has watched every game the Bengals have played since Joe Burrow got drafted.
That's enough for me, Doug.
That's much more likely what's going on tonight. And you think that maybe, I don't need Brock, right? Let's check Let's check it out.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Well, I think that, if we say that Brock's got a concussion and stuff, it'll be easier for us to play Sam and stuff. And I think we can use this narrative and
That's
stuff.
another thing. You need to mess with the concussion rules in the NFL.
Guys have an idea and stuff. I think we're gonna say that Brock's got a concussion and stuff. I don't know if you remember that sneak and stuff, but he got his bell rung. And I think it's a good time for us to see what we have in Sam and stuff. And I don't want to tell the team and stuff, so we're going to tell the media that he's got a concussion and stuff. And we're going to go with Sam and stuff.
That was pretty good.
Thanks.
I actually think it's a much more worthy statement to say after the Tua experience that we watched last year, I'm appreciative that the 49ers didn't mess around with the situation that they could have. Nobody saw anything.
No, good call.
Nobody saw anything. It was on a private plane where he probably puked in the bathroom, to be honest with you.
Or had a headache.
Yeah. But a headache is a headache. Concussion symptoms.
It could have been dizziness. It could have been whatever it was.
Whatever it was.
Hopefully it wasn't thrown up because that indicates a much more severe concussion.
This is the situation where the Niners could have been like, okay, Brock, did you just shuttle him to the home and get some rest? I bet it'll be fine tomorrow. No, they put him in the protocol. So, that to me is a much more worthwhile thing to say about all this.